The tropical night was alive with cicadas and the occasional rustle of palm fronds, yet an eerie heaviness clung to the air in Barangay Santo Milagro. The villagers whispered of shadows that moved without wind and voices that echoed in empty fields. A decade of drought had bled the land dry, but it wasn't the famine that haunted their dreams. It was the Amalanhig. Father Marcos had arrived 3 days earlier, summoned by desperate pleas scrawled on crumpled parchment. An aging priest with a face carved by years of sun and doubt, he had seen things the church preferred buried in forgotten texts. The Amalanhig, however, were a legend even he hesitated to acknowledge. That evening, he ventured into the home of Rosario, a widow whose son had been the latest to vanish. Her hollow eyes met his as she gripped a worn rosary. Rosario. It drags them to the marsh, all who hear the humming. Father Marcos, crossing himself, what of the bodies? Her silence was answer enough. Rosario's eldest daughter, Marisol, led the priest to the marsh at sunset. The dying light painted the nipa huts in shades of blood and rust. The marsh's surface gleamed like oil, the reeds swaying unnaturally, though the air was still. Marisol, trembling. You shouldn't go alone. The Amalanhig walks after dark. Father Marcos, adjusting his lantern. Pray for me. He waded into the muck, the stench of decay biting his nostrils. The lantern's light cut through the mist, revealing jagged roots protruding like skeletal fingers. Then he heard it, a low, melodic hum, like a hymn sung by voices not quite human. Father Marcos, who's there? The humming ceased. In its place came a wet, dragging sound. The reeds parted and a figure emerged, its face pallid and bloated, its eyes black pits that seemed to absorb the light. The Amalanhig's jaw hung slack, revealing teeth yellowed and sharpened to points. Father Marcos stumbled backward, reciting the Lord's Prayer. The creature advanced, its movements stiff yet unrelenting. When it spoke, its voice was a grotesque parody of human speech. Amalanhig, why, pray, your God won't come! The priest hurled holy water, the droplets sizzling as they struck the creature's flesh. It recoiled, hissing like a cornered serpent. But the marsh began to quake, as if the earth itself rebelled. More shapes rose from the water, their forms distorted by years of death and rot. Back in the village, Marisol paced by the edge of the marsh, clutching a bolo knife. She heard Father Marcos's screams before she saw him, a limping figure, his robes shredded, and his lantern extinguished. Father Marcos, run! But it was too late. The Amalanhig were upon him, dragging him into the water. Marisol froze as one turned its empty gaze toward her. She bolted, her bare feet slicing on sharp rocks, but the humming filled her ears, growing louder with each step. It wasn't until she reached the church that she realized the sound was inside her head. The following morning, the villagers found the church doors hanging open. Inside, the altar was smeared with blood, and Father Marcos's crucifix lay shattered on the ground. Marisol's bolo knife was embedded in the wooden pulpit, a warning or a plea. The Amalanhig no longer lingered in the marsh. They had tasted new prey and would not stop until every voice in Santo Milagro was silenced.